Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. An update to a story I talked about in a previous video. I guess it got past me that the WBC title has in fact changed hands in the light flyweight division. Jessica Niri Plata doesn't have it anymore. Her countrywoman, Lourdes Juárez, has it, apparently, and she is listed as the WBC's full champion on their website, sporting a professional record of 37 wins with 4 losses, no draws, 4 knockouts, having been knocked out once in 41 professional bouts. I guess it could have something to do with Jessica Niri Plata's announcement, her recent announcement that she is with child and that's going to keep her out of commission for the foreseeable future. Perhaps the World Boxing Council decided to alleviate her of the title on that premise. Lourdes is the champion now, and apparently her fight with Yesenia Gomez at the end of last month was for the full title. So far, Lourdes Juárez, the younger sister of famed fighter Barbie Juárez, has been a champion at 3 weights. She was a champion at Superfly, Fly, and now Light Fly. One of 2 champions there at that weight. There's Lourdes Juárez holding the WBC, and there is Evelyn Bermudez holding the WBO and IBF titles. The landscape is changing in the light flyweight division, with the caveat being that Lourdes Juárez, as accomplished as she is, newly crowned light flyweight champion, is no spring chicken. She's 37 years old. A trip over to the World Boxing Council's current rank standings lists Evelyn Bermudez as their number 1 contender, which is silly. Evelyn is a sitting champion. She shouldn't be ranked as a contender. I don't know why they do this. They only do it with the girls. They don't do it with the guys. It's stupid. Evelyn Bermudez is not a contender, and she shouldn't be ranked as such. She's currently in possession of not 1, but 2 alphabet titles. In any event, they've got Evelyn at number 1, not that it matters, and they have Canada's own Kim Clavel, former champion Kim Clavel, at number 2. That essentially means that Kim is the highest ranked contender, and she is in line to challenge Lourdes for the WBC title. Kim Clavel, who sports a professional record of 20 wins with 2 losses, no draws, 3 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 22 professional bouts. After the controversial decision in the Evelyn Bermudez fight, I wondered if Kim Clavel would leave the division, but she didn't. She stayed put, built herself back up, climbed up those ranks.
Fought 3 times this year.
Once in April, again the following month in May, and this past November. She's on a 3-fight winning streak, and she's in a pole position to challenge for the green and gold she used to hold.
3 years younger than the reigning champion.
I have to say, a Lourdes Juárez fight is Kim's best bet at becoming a 2-time light flyweight champion. I think she can do it. She's younger. She's got more money behind her, which is why she's able to fight on a more consistent basis than a lot of other light flyweights. She fought 3 times last year, and she's already fought 3 times this one. I'd wager that in the coming year, she's gonna challenge Lourdes for that belt. Lourdes will have to travel. She'll have to go to Canada, where Kim will have home field advantage. And this time, I think it's going to work out.
Kim is a bit of a speedster, very fast on her feet, fast hands, quick combinations.
And I think if Kim can get Lourdes in the ring, she can out-hustle her. She can win a points decision. Kim's really not big on power. She's no knockout merchant, but she is very fast.
Mid-range to inside.
And like I said, this bit of news, it got past me. I wasn't aware that the green and gold title had already changed hands, that it went from Jessica to Lourdes, but I don't think Lourdes is going to have it for all that long.
Just as long as it takes for Kim to get her in the ring. That's what's going on.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, you may have heard that Gervonta Davis called out Jake Paul. He said, "This is my call out. What up, Jake Paul?"
What's his problem with Jake?
He took issue with Jake Paul's fight against the 58-year-old Mike Tyson. He, like a lot of people, didn't like that. Now, Jake responded to him by saying, "Floyd's little son is calling me out. Come on, little tank, you know better. I saw you pretend like you didn't know who Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor are. Do better, and maybe one day I'll give you a platform to shine again after that budget basic press conference you just had."
So Jake noticed it too, that the PBC are operating at a much reduced capacity.
It was very mom and pop at the kickoff press conference for Gervonta's upcoming fight with Lamont Roach. Jake doesn't seem interested in giving him an opportunity. Now, who he did want to give an opportunity was his old buddy, Tommy Fury. A little over a week ago, he let it be known, "I offered Tommy Fury $8 million to fight on Netflix. He turned it down, and now he's fighting an MMA fighter. Now tell me who is running, stupid daddy-controlled kid, protected from the inevitable." Very well-known Twitter account that goes by the name Boxing Kingdom added to the conversation by saying, "Jake Paul posted this last week and quickly deleted it. Days later, Tommy Fury versus Darren Till was canceled. Could the Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury rematch be imminent?"
Consider that Jake Paul doesn't want to give Gervonta Davis the time of day. He doesn't seem to want to give Canelo Alvarez the time of day.
But he did admit to making Tommy Fury an offer for a rematch. $8 million. That's $8 million more than Tommy Fury deserves, because the guy sucks.
He's a Ken doll with boxing gloves.
This is where boxing can be a perverse sport. An aberration that a guy like Tommy Fury, who's done absolutely nothing in the world of boxing, could be making that kind of money when there are so many more skilled and dedicated fighters that are never going to see a bag like that.
You know, there are some champions that are never going to see a bag like that.
Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's what they say. But if Jake Paul doesn't seem to have any time for Gervonta Davis, and he doesn't have any time for Canelo Alvarez, it could be because he's on the eve of fighting Tommy Fury for a second time.
Tommy Fury's fight with Darren Till did get canceled. I don't think Tommy Fury was going to make $8 million for that fight.
And just imagine, if they had $8 million for Tommy Fury to box on Netflix, what do you think they're paying Jake?
Geesh.
My previous video, I talked about how it doesn't really get bigger than Mike Tyson in terms of combat sports and icons. That's about as big as you can get. So it will be difficult for Jake Paul to top what he just did with Mike. And rest assured, Mike had everything to do with the amount of people that tuned in for that show.
A lot of them were tuning in for Mike.
He's not going to do those same numbers with Tommy Fury. He's not going to do the same numbers, but he could still do good numbers so long as they maintain that model. They didn't bill the Mike Tyson fight as a pay-per-view, even though they could have. No, they made it available to all existing Netflix subscribers. That's over 200 million people.
The way that they approached this show, it was tantamount to doing a show on terrestrial television, not putting it behind a paywall.
In a manner of speaking, because only terrestrial networks, at least in previous eras, could reach that many people, that many households. In this day and age, it's a platform like Netflix.
They're available in a lot of households.
Everybody has Netflix, and even though there is a subscription fee, you do have to be subscribed, and that in and of itself is a paywall. They didn't add another one, like so many other streaming platforms. They made it available to as many people as possible, thus, they got as many eyes on the show as possible. If they do that with the Tommy Fury rematch, they're not going to do what they did with Mike, but they'll still do all right.
They're still going to get a lot of eyes on that fight.
I want to say that in the last decade or so, the American market especially has become inundated with box office fights, pay-per-views. That's caused the audience to shrink, the audience that consumes boxing, because there's only so many times a year you can ask the customers to go into their wallets.
After a while, you're not building anything, building towards the future. You're treating boxing like it's a luxury item when it's supposed to be a poor man's sport, the common man's sport.
And it became all too common a practice the last couple of years to gouge the boxing fans, putting up paywall after paywall after paywall,
till the audience found a way around it. Piracy, rampant piracy. This goes hand in hand with that. The more fights you tuck away behind a paywall, the greater demand there is for illegal streams.
Netflix's approach to the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight That's the solution. You have to make boxing accessible to people again, because that's when sports are great, when everybody's watching them and everybody's talking about them, irrespective of the sport, whether it's boxing or something else.
Jake Paul and Tommy Fury are hardly two of the most skilled cruiserweights or bridgerweights or whatever they weigh.
But a fight between them on Netflix would still get more eyes on it than a bona fide boxing match between two bona fide boxers. Oh, yes, it would.
Not just because one of them's a very popular social media influencer, but because of accessibility. It's more accessible. That if they do with this fight what they did with the Tyson fight, that's another big one.
Much to the chagrin of many a boxing purist, you may not like Jake Paul, you may not like his fights, but this kid's ahead of the curve. He's showing you the way. You need to make boxing accessible to people again,
or it's gonna die out. It's gonna continue to fade into the background of the sporting consciousness.
You need to give boxing back to the people. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, another look at the recent bombshell announcement that Top Rank is making a play to do a Teofimo Lopez versus Ennis fight in the coming year. I noticed over the weekend that Teofimo was in attendance for the Top Rank show, and he had a hit list. He named three guys. Ennis, Terrence Crawford, and Gervonta Davis.
The first two I was skeptical about. I'm still skeptical about.
Whether or not he really wants fights with the likes of Terrence Crawford or Ennis, I've often interpreted such behaviors as clout chasing from Teofimo, that's all he's doing, because he doesn't have a fight lined up, but he wants to keep his name out there. He'll start name dropping other guys, so that the journos have something to write about, so that the content creators have something to talk about on their channels. He'll do this with no real intention of following up, and even now,
I'm skeptical.
Bob says he's willing to do it. He says the people at Top Rank have gotten in contact with the people at Matchroom, and they're trying to see if they can work something out. In my previous video about this same subject, we focused on why Top Rank would want to do this, what's in it for them. In this segment, we're going to talk about the fight itself. What would it look like? Because Teofimo is noticeably smaller than Ennis.
Hard to imagine.
I want to preface everything I'm about to say with this. I don't have the best track record with Teofimo. That is, Teofimo's bigger fights. The Lomachenko fight.
Nope.
The Josh Jailer fight.
Nope.
I thought those guys were going to beat him. He proved me wrong. He beat them.
But you know, there was always an angle. Lomachenko was fighting with an injured shoulder. Josh Taylor was coming off a year of inactivity and a controversial win over Jack Catterall. Controversial because he should have lost.
He was coming off an injury, too, going into that Teofimo Lopez fight. That hindsight is 2020, and when you look back, there was always an angle, something they could use. Whereas here, I don't really see an avenue.
An angle, an area of opportunity.
I mean, you tell me, if you think Teofimo Lopez actually stands a chance against this guy, if you think he can beat him, how does he do it? Because I can't see it. Teofimo was a short, stumpy, stocky fighter at 135 pounds, but he was very fast and very strong. Now that strength waned when he moved up to 140. He's not knocking guys out the same way that he used to. His power ain't at 140.
What it was at 135.
So what's it gonna be like at 147 against even bigger guys with a bigger punch?
What's it gonna be?
Talk about the stylistic matchup. This fight would pit boxer-puncher versus boxer-puncher, but they've got their differences, their nuances in how they use that base style. Teofimo is more economic and leans heavily towards counter-punching and setting up counters before moving in, whereas Boots is a bit more aggressive, shows more initiative, and more combinations. He's more comfortable coming forward than Teofimo, and more effective
coming forward.
How is it that Teofimo plans on fighting this guy? Because hanging back and trying to set a trap, that's not a good idea against a guy who's bigger than you are, taller and longer.
Why not?
Because the taller, longer fighter doesn't need to be close to you to touch you with a punch. If you're hanging back, trying to stay just on the outside of that taller fighter, not only are they still going to be able to touch you with punches because they've got more reach than you do, but you'll be at the end of the punch, at the very end of it, where the most power is generated.
It's really not a good idea.
Hanging back and trying to set up a counter on a taller, longer fighter, you're a sitting duck out there. That's what happened to Joseph Parker when he fought Joe Joyce. That's what happened this weekend to Robeisy Ramirez when he fought Rafael Espinoza for a second time. Hanging back and trying to set a trap against a taller, longer guy, is not a good idea.
I hope that's not what Teofimo plans on doing, unless he wants to get himself knocked out.
There's the stylistic matchup, and then there are the physicalities, and among them, Jaron Ennis is taller, Jaron Ennis is longer. I think Jaron Ennis is stronger. Yes, I do think Jaron Ennis punches harder than Teofimo.
I don't think that's a hot take.
And I don't think it's a good idea for Teofimo to hang back the way he normally does, trying to set a trap. It may not work against this guy. You may get yourself knocked out. So what if he comes forward? What if he does that?
Did you see what Jaron Ennis did to Roman Villa? Roman Villa was coming forward.
Teofimo is not a particularly effective fighter on the front foot when he's the one coming forward. But what if he tries that with Jaron Ennis? Is that any kind of a solution? Is that a better idea? And I don't think so.
Not even with Eddie Reynoso in his corner.
No, Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not going to learn everything you can learn from Eddie after just one camp. If this is to be Teofimo's next fight in the first quarter of next year, you know, Eddie's great, but he's not a miracle worker. If he were, Oscar Valdez would have had his hand raised this weekend. Did you forget that Eddie Reynoso was in his corner? Trainer can only do but so much. They can give you the right strategy, but it's up to you to execute it. And can you? You know, Oscar Valdez, for all his efforts and bravery, he was just outgunned by a bigger, stronger fighter. And looking at this fight, I feel like that's what would happen to Teofimo. It's not because I'm so high on Jaron Ennis.
I'm not.
If you've been following this channel for at least the last 2 years, you'll know that I'm not a member of the Jaron Ennis fan club. I was never sold on that fighter and all that stuff they were saying. But for this fight, oh yeah, I think he can beat Teofimo.
Yeah, you can beat him. George Kambosos beat him. Sandor Martin, a light punching Sandor Martin, sat him down 2 times. So what do you think Jaron Ennis would do to him?
So if you try to hang back and set a trap, work off the counter, you're a sitting duck out there and he'll pick you off long range. If you try to come forward, if you try to get aggressive with him, he's gonna do to you what he did to Roman Villa.
I just don't see how he wins this fight if he is serious about having it.
And Top Rank is serious about making it, and they actually do. I just don't see how Teofimo wins this thing.
I just don't see how.
And that's where the skepticism comes from. In a fight where I just don't see an area of opportunity for Teofimo given how he fights and how he's built, I question whether or not he's being serious. Are you serious about fighting this guy? Because I don't see how you win.
I know that I've underestimated Teofimo before, but you have to admit this is a little different, isn't it?
He's not facing a naturally smaller, older fighter like he did in Vasyl Lomachenko, and he's not facing an inactive, injury-prone fighter like he did in Josh Taylor. This is different.
But I don't know.
I'm gonna curb my enthusiasm. Do I like the idea of the fight? Yeah, I do. And if they bill it as a pay-per-view, I'll buy it if they make it. But I just don't see how Teofimo wins this fight.
I don't even know if I can believe that he's serious.
Well, Bob is. Bob's the one trying to make it. But then again, maybe Bob's just fed up with Teofimo and he's gonna feed him to the wolves.
You said you wanted it, right? Go get it.